animals don't get too hung up on reason. They just keep killing.
Hey, Horror Hounds, Dave Brown here, along with my good friend Brian Emmenheiser, aka South Jersey Jason. We are really excited about this interview. Brian, I was as much shocked as Mr. Barrett accepted, and yep, he would come on and actually be part of this. We've had a few interviews in the past, some good heavy hitters. But this one for me, if I can remember correctly, Brian, you screamed like a schoolgirl when I told you were getting Ry.
Yeah, when you said you had sent an email to Ry, I was like, holy crap, because, it's been a very long time since we had a true slasher type film that rejuvenated the franchise, especially an independent film. And it just gave us a breath of fresh air. So it's very exciting to be talking with the man behind the fireman's mask, or however you would say.
Right. And I think, as I mentioned to you, right? Is it Ry or Ryan? What do you like? I don't know.
I go by Ry with film stuff. My name is Ryan, but I shortened it to Ry with that because I'm easier to find that way.
That's cool, because I didn't know if we were friends enough yet to call you Ry or Ryan, but Ry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm easy either way.
That's cool. As I had mentioned, we are friends with one of your co-stars who had the most dialogue in A Violent Nature, and that's Miss Lauren Marie Taylor. We go back a couple years, 3 or 4 years. I've known her. She was at my premiere, where she was able to grace her presence. She wasn't in my film, but I had Ron Milkey, who played Officer Dorff, in my movie.
Okay, nice.
And then
that's great.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. And he lives in Hell's Kitchen. I don't know if you met Bill Randolph from Friday the 13th Part 2. He's usually with Lauren quite a bit. He played Jeff in Friday the 13th Part 2. And they do cons together. And recently I picked them up. They're both in Manhattan area. And I drive them to Blairstown, where I think I had mentioned to you before we jumped on, where they have their Friday the 13th fests. Right. And the conversations with those guys are just, not even about horror film, but as actors, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
But to go back to what I was saying, Lauren, I asked her, I said, do you think, Ry would be interested in chatting with the Third Channel and coming on? She goes, oh, yeah, he's a pretty genuine guy. You should just try it and go for it. And, when I reached out and you responded, because, I didn't think it would go over, but I even used my AI technology to type up a really nice because I'm in New York, so some of the words that I choose, but I love AI. In any case, we're very, very happy to have you on here, and we have so much we want to cover and talk about. Because me and Brian, we loved In a Violent Nature. Mm-hmm. We thought it was a fantastic film, and there was a lot of like we were saying, homages of your film, of this film, to a lot of the 80s slashers that we grew up with, me being the older one of the bunch, loving those 80s slashers. And there was such an homage to this, and that's what, and then to do it as a first person view through the killer's eye, that was just a phenomenal play. That was just phenomenal.
And in addition, for the viewers and the listeners, Ry not only is in this amazing role as Johnny, but he's got quite a few films under his belt. Not to mention he's a producer, obviously a stuntman and a writer. So we're going to get into the questions. Before we get into your role of Johnny in A Violent Nature, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And from the way it looks on your IMDb, you've got a plethora of horror films to talk about. What and how got you started in the entertainment industry? And I take it you are a horror fan.
Yeah, I'm a huge horror fan. Just a big film geek in general. I've always grown up watching, studying, and loving movies. Just kind of always been in our family, and my friends, same thing. Just growing up, and then getting into it. It was kind of a bit of a happy accident. I never really thought I loved acting in school growing up, but I never really thought it was something that I could kind of pursue as a career or as something serious as an artist. And then a couple of my friends they were just making a movie. This was like 2001, 2002. But they would they had a mini DV camera. They were new on the market. It was just something like an experiment, and they're like, "Hey, let's have a meeting, see who wants to be involved." And they actually asked me. I thought it was going to be like an editor or like on production side or something, and they asked me to play the lead in it. And then that film ended up, just because there was no other real options at the time, it got picked up by Lionsgate and Lions Atlantis and got worldwide distribution. So we thought we were pretty big shit at that point, but it obviously not. But that started us off, and everyone who worked on that movie, there's a core group of us. We've all gone on to work together again on other films, and then branch off and do our own projects. And there's at least, I'm going to say at least like 5 or 6 of us who worked on that film who are still doing like film related stuff.
Now you're Canadian based, aren't you, Ry?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, sweet. So this is one of the questions. I'm going off topic like I usually do. I have tangents where I go off topic. So are you starting to do the HorrorCon things now? Are you actually, because I think Lauren said you guys did something down in Florida together, and you're finally getting out there and networking in that sense?
Yeah. I mean, I've done a few conventions over the years, like just up here in Canada, but like generally as a guest at someone's booth or something for a film, like promoting a film that was coming out or something. But I've signed with Full Empire, Dominic Mancini, for doing convention appearances. So Florida was my first official convention in the States as a guest. I went to Comic-Con. I was brought there as a guest, as like a promotional thing to announce the sequel for An Violent Nature 2. But the Florida Ancient City Con was my first convention. And then I'm hitting the Frightmare at the Falls. That's my next one. I just did one up here in Canada, Sick in Sudbury. So we're just kind of lining them up as we're hoping there's a demand for it. So we're just kind of starting it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. I actually am pretty good friends with Ryan Scott Weber, who does the NJ and PA HorrorCon out here in the East Coast. And I had said, hey, I'm interviewing Ry Barrett from An Violent Nature this weekend. If you want to have him at a future show, I'll pass on the word. So it's in his mental Rolodex. So when so what he'll do is he because usually like for Laura Marie Taylor, I guess he knows we have such a good relationship. Hey, do you think Lauren can come on? Okay, let me reach out to her and I'll talk to her agent. So when he starts to do his lineup, he'll do the same thing, and then I'll reach out to you or your agent, however. And you, like I said, your character, your movie is such a nice fresh of breath air in the horror community, because it's to me the newer horror movies, it doesn't have the character development. A lot of them are CG. Me and Dave don't like that. We like the practical effects, but your film has a lot of great kills, and we'll talk about. So you're up there. You're up there with the big guys. Johnny's up there with Jason, Michael, Freddie. I think
Johnny's
so.
got some work to do yet for that.
How tall are you, by the way?
What's that?
How tall are you?
6'3".
Okay.
So I'm taller-ish as an actor, but I'm not one of the big guys. Like there's a lot of guys that dwarf me still, but it's nice because I can kind of fall in the middle of that and play different types of roles too. So
aside from Derek Mears and
I'm sorry, Ry, you got nice big bulk, you got bulk to you too. That's the premise. Like you could tell that he works out.
Now with your back, was there any shoulder pads? Was that all you? Because we get a lot of the behind the view.
There's a bit, like there's an underlayer of but it's just like latex skin, so that when you see through the holes. But there wasn't really, I don't think there was much other than just no, it's mostly just like a shirt, like on the shoulders and stuff. That's pretty much just me. But there is some padding in the stomach and chest area, just for when you see through the shirt kind of thing.
Gotcha.
The irony of my little fan film, and I'm going to toot my own horn here. Your outfit, because my Jason, I'm 6'5". I play Jason, but I don't have that bulk. I wore a bodysuit underneath. The outfit that Johnny wears is almost identical to Jason from His Name with Jason.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I wear a sack mask on mine because part 2 Jason was always my favorite. I didn't have a hawk on mine. I wore a sack. But yeah, I was like, when I saw In a Violent Nature, I'm like, and I saw the promo photos and the behind the scenes when you guys, I'm like, oh my God, that looks like His Name was Jason's costume.
That's cool. Well, I mean, Nash is a big Friday the 13th fan too, and it's supposed to be, you know, a kind of an amalgamation of different things that we've seen. So that's cool.
Yeah. So, you know, I see you have three wins and 5 nominations under your belt for your films. Can you elaborate a little bit more on those?
I don't even know which ones they are at this point. They're probably mostly festival wins for different awards and stuff over the years. But we've had I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I don't know how many features I actually have right now at the moment. There's over 45 or something like that. Yeah. But it's been, you know, some of them have gotten out there and done a big festival run and gotten different types of awards and stuff like that. And then others have gone straight to, you know, being released. It all depends on this distributor and the situation and everything. But
now, was In a Violent Nature the first on-screen big, you know, release that you had, or did you have other films that actually went to the theater?
In a Violent Nature is the biggest. It's the one that's kind of popped off and just grown its own life. I've had some others that have had like short theatrical runs and gotten out there more in Canada probably. But there's been, you know, we've had international tours and have stuff played all over the world. So it just depends on which ones kind of like pick up and take off. But I've had a bunch that have done short theatricals and a bunch of festival runs and stuff. But In a Violent Nature is definitely the one that's kind of just popped off.
Yeah, and blew up like we were saying. It was like the Blair Witch Project all over.
You know, I was reading like some of the reviews for In a Violent Nature, and people were like, "Oh, there's no music." I'm like, "Well, you got to think about it. It's from the killer's perspective. There is no music, and that's what I loved. I love the cinematography. I love that you just heard nature because that's where you were at, you know. So, and it's just to me and Dave, it's a different perspective, and it's a cool perspective to see from the eyes or over the shoulder of the killer.
And the setting, and as to what you're saying too, like the setting and the sounds, they play a major character part themselves too. So
especially like when you're walking in the footsteps, you know, like that was just awesome. So in your first film, I had read that you got injured on set, nasty run-in with the camera jib. You received multiple staples, but that didn't stop you from returning to finish your scenes. Ironically, the same thing. Another actor that Dave and I adore was Steve Dash from Friday the 13th Part 2. Same thing happened to him. He got hurt and he went into full costume to the hospital and came back. Can you talk more about like what happened on set?
I think Lauren might have mentioned that too, actually. But that was our first movie. It was very small, a very tiny, inexperienced, like non-union crew. Everyone was trying to take care of each other and trying to do, you know, things the right way and everything. But it was just one of those, it was like 2 a.m. or something. Everyone was kind of focused on just getting the thing done. And I was kind of standing there, just going over the scene in my head, standing there. And I guess the jib I had walked right under the jib just as somebody had taken the weights off the counterweights. And the thing just dropped directly on the top. I didn't know what happened. I was just kind of standing there and felt this big jarring shake up, and then I touched my head and there was blood. And suddenly everyone's like, holy. Anyway, I went to the hospital, I got staples, and then came back. We finished the scene, and then I think I probably had a concussion.
That's what I was going to ask.
So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Steve Dash took a machete to the hand during his fight scene with Ginny in the shack, and that he ended up getting stitches on his hand.
I remember. I've seen that in the behind the scenes or something. The story of how that happened too.
Yeah. So
he was blocking it or something like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of irony there, you know.
Yeah.
That's pretty. Let's talk about In a Violent Nature and how the role came to you, and what were your thoughts when you read the script? and your personal opinion. Did you feel when you first read it that it was definitely an homage to Friday the 13th?
So when I first read it, I was kind of told the premise, the basic premise of it. So I knew that it was going to be like an homage to the slashers of the 80s, but like from a different perspective. But then when reading it, like it was actually a really well written script, which you don't always expect for, horror movies, especially with a slasher film. You expect it to kind of be very straightforward, but Chris is just a good writer. He's got there's tons of description in there, and he'll joke and say that it's the most boring script because it's just Johnny walking. But a lot of that is like, that was the shortest moments of the script. It's just like Johnny is walking through this kind of a vista or this, and it was like the motivation, and then he gets to the place, and then it was very descriptive. But yeah, I could tell right off the bat that it was gonna be something fresh just by reading the kill scenes, how crazy they were, and just being like, wow, they're like pushing this, and I love like the fresh kind of spin of it.
Right. Yeah, the kills, and we'll get into the kills. One of the questions, Brian, I don't have on here, I wanted to ask was your prosthetics guy, your makeup people. Are they well known? Because the work that they did on this film, and I'm saying, and I could be wrong, all of this was had no CGI at all. This was all, practical effects, I take it. I mean, there may have been one where I was kind of questioning if it was CGI, and it looked like the head crushing scene. I didn't know if that was CGI, but all of it was practical effects. If not,
yeah, it was all practical. There's like little tiny tweaks and additions that they added to some scenes, like maybe like a little extra blood, but they don't even like doing that. So it's like, if they have to do something just to kind of like
emphasize,
smooth it out or something, then they'll do that. But it's pretty much everything there that you see is practical, and it was all there. Like I saw it firsthand. Everything was there. Steve Kostanski, he did the majority of the builds and the kills and the makeup, Johnny's face and all that stuff. And he's done a bunch. He has a film out right now called Frankie Frico. He just did Psycho Gorman. He's part of the Astron 6 group. Okay. Who's done a bunch of amazing stuff, and he's worked on like a lot of big shows like Star Trek and all that stuff, doing all the makeup appliances.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, so he's a pro, and him and Chris go way back. So, and Chris is also like a big effects and makeup guy too. So the two of them together, they designed these kills to be, exactly what they are, and designed those ahead of time. So it was all kind of like, pre-thought out and pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, that was the thing with these kills, and me and Ryan have talked about it. It was like, unlike a Jason, where his kills are pretty fast and pretty abrupt, Johnny takes his time and thinks about it, but yet it's very fluid and very fast. And that was the most mind blowing is what's watching these, because it takes a lot, and I'm desensitized in horror films these days because I've watched them since I was 11 years old. And you rarely get that wince and that you feel it. But in a violent nature, especially with the axe, the log splitter, like, dear God, like that. Yeah. That was excuse my French, but that was a mind fuck. That was my favorite. That was
the fact that he was paralyzed but was aware of everything. Instead of giving him like a drug to make him paralyzed, you broke his back. And that was that's kind of where the film, like each kill kind of has its own tone and something about it, and that one I that's the one where the film goes full horror. Like, it's just you're with him, and Nash is like, all right, you want violence? Here's violence, and I'm gonna make you like wallow in it. Right. But he makes you breathe. What was your first scene that you filmed?
The first scene we did is actually right after the decapitation. After that,
okay.
When Johnny is dragging the body up to the ranger station, and he throws the head through the window.
That was just a great scene. I love how he just used the body as a tool. Throws the head in to break the window, and then he throws the body against the wall to get the mask out. Like,
that was that either that exact scene where I threw it through the window or the dragging up to. I think that was our first night of shooting. Okay. So that was my introduction as being Johnny, and how he was, really actually doing the movements and stuff. And it's funny too, like the head throw where it lands inside and it kind of lands in the light.
Hmm.
We had 2 takes of that, and that was the first take where it just bounced and landed in perfect spot. And I was
Nice.
just sitting there because I actually did the throw too, and I was
Okay.
just like under the mask, just kind of like, yes, I'm like, now they can trust me now. I'm like, that just landed the way. And then the next throw actually worked too, but it's like, it's just when you're doing something like that with a prop, it usually never lands where you want it to for the first,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have gone through the same thing. Most effects don't work that first time, but
Yeah.
I was just happy with that.
Especially
Now,
with low budget films, you don't have the money to redo it over and over and over.
Exactly.
And like you're
Yeah.
praying to God, like let's make this work. We can't break the glass of numerous times or what have you. But yeah, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. We got lucky on that one.
some actors who are playing the killer when they're filming the movie, they won't mingle with the cast members because they want to keep a realism on screen. Did
Mhm.
you abide by that rule, like or did you intermingle with your fellow
Yeah,
actors?
I did at least for the because we had multiple shooting blocks, but for the first block where it was mostly with the full cast there, I did kind of stay away from them. I didn't want to. It's one of those things where it's like it does help when you're like just kind of there's a little bit more mystery to the person who's playing, But we were staying at the same hotel and our base camp that was just outside of where we were shooting. We're all staying in this like comfortable little chalet area. So it was a small area, and I didn't want to be too like you couldn't really separate yourself too much. So I just kind of went in the corner and was reading a book while everyone else was kind of talking, chatting stuff,
Were
and
you
I
reading
kind
a
of stayed
book
that way.
in the Johnny costume, kind of like that iconic photo of
Booker.
Booker with his pipe reading like the newspaper? Did we get a shot?
Yeah,
um,
yeah. That was about
so
all I could do between stuff because when I had the gloves on and everything, I
mhm.
couldn't really touch or do anything.
Right,
So the only thing
yeah.
I really could do was read between
Okay.
scenes.
Speaking of like your makeup, how long was the process of getting into the makeup and wearing it on set? Like, obviously, it might hinder your vision. So, talk to us about that whole process.
The suit itself, when Johnny's wearing the helmet,
Hmm.
that doesn't take long at all to put on. It's kind of like I could probably put it on in about 15-20 minutes. Just it's the gloves, the underlayer, the skin, and then just the pants and the helmet. And
Hmm.
then you just do like black out of the eyes
Hmm.
and then when the helmet is off, that takes a little long. There's a cowl that goes over top,
Hmm.
comes down to about here, and then the one day where you saw Johnny's face, that was about I want to say about a 3.5 hour makeup job. So we just like did all the work that's sealed to the cowl, and then teeth and all the stuff that went in there.
I didn't expect to see anything come off that. And I didn't expect that hood to come off. I thought it was just going to be. I didn't know there was going to be a reveal. And
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
my God, the makeup was phenomenal, even down to the dead eyes, the contacts, and it was just like I loved his look upon the look. I mean, just like the reveal of Sackhead Jason when we got to see him without at the end of that. But like, I had no idea you were going to take off your hood, the fireman's hood. And when we saw that, and we saw the human-esque moment
Yes.
with the truck, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, because
okay.
usually in the Friday 13th, you get maybe 30 seconds of a reveal, but this one, it's like a full maybe minute, maybe a little longer, and you see the emotions, which I like because he's still a kid, and he's playing with the car, and you see like the forehead, like just like, moving, and
Yeah,
you,
there's it's hard to show anything underneath
yeah,
that stuff.
and
So that's like one of the big things to.
yeah, and you kind of you sympathize with him for that 1 minute,
Yeah.
because of the backstory of what happened and how he died, and then like a light bulb, he crushes that car and he gets back to what he's doing.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That's I love that part too. For that reason, it's the one moment you kind of get to see a little bit of humanity in Johnny, even though he's just done these terrible things and he's going to do even more.
Right.
But it's that one kind of it manipulates the audience a little bit in like that. It's like that Frankenstein moment, where
Hmm.
he meets the little girl and it's like this tender moment, but then he picks her up and throws her into the lake, and it's just like, oh, he's a monster. This is just, but you see the humanity for half a second, and
Well, that's what will with what's coming out next, with I don't know if it's going to be a prequel or a sequel, but when you have those little moments like you just did in Violent Nature, and you got to see that human side of him, that's when the villain, you start cheering for him more, because then you're starting to, like in Friday the 13th films, towards the end, everybody was just wanting the kills and wanted Jason, but as being a fan of the original in part two, there was more character development, and you got to feel more for Pamela Voorhees and more for Jason by the time part two came around.
Mhm.
So, watching in A Violent Nature, and that moment where your reveal happened and seeing the truck, is like, oh yeah, there's definitely homages going on here. And I think that's what me and Brian liked about it, because it did take us back to those moments of the Friday the 13th films, which we really love so much. Which brings me to my next question. Did you have an inspiration for Johnny? Was there anything that you took from past films of your own, or some of the iconic pop horror legends like Michael Myers, or a Jason, or a Bubba from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface? I mean, was there anything there that you took from those guys, or was it your own only?
That was so. I talked to Chris about that ahead of time, and he said that he didn't want anything specific, but wanted a little bit of, like, it needed to be relatable to kind of all of it, right? So I mean, I'm already a huge fan of the genre, but I just went back and rewatched everything and tried to find everything new that I hadn't seen before. Not new, but like from the 80s that I just had missed somehow. So I kind of watched and rewatched everything, and then kind of zeroed in on a few things to kind of pinpoint but there was, like, obviously Kane Hodder is a huge influence, and just like one of the most recognizable Jasons because of his physicality. And I really like CJ Graham. I like each one of the Jasons has something specific that's really cool that I try to draw a little bit from that. And then the My Bloody Valentine, the Minor, Cropsy and The Burning.
There you go. Yeah.
And Nick Castle as the Shape in the original Halloween. It was kind of amalgamation of mostly that kind of stuff. But I mean, I watched everything. So it was kind of like, I don't know what was in my head while I was actually doing those things. I gave myself some rules so I wouldn't do too much of one thing. And that was one of the things that Nash was watching at the beginning too, to make sure that we were consistent. And then once the first few days were down, we just had that and had the rules down. So just so we wouldn't lean too much in doing like a copy of one thing.
Yeah, because I definitely got a feel for, I saw many different characters in Johnny, and there was a lot of like relatable, like I definitely saw a Kane at times, and I definitely saw some of the other actors, but you definitely made it your own, especially again going back to your unveiling. That was definitely you. That was your own, because I have never seen that that compassionate moment in a killer, if I can remember correctly, maybe once or twice, but that made it your own at that point. And when another one comes out, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that human aspect of Johnny come out on occasion. That
means a lot. That's a big part of it for me too, to like kind of have something of my own that's in that character too. So
yeah. And that's how I love. Now I'm a big A24 guy. I love A24 films. Me and Brian, we love Pearl, we love Maxine, we love all these movies that A24 are coming out. And this is how I see and how I appreciate future horror, because there's a thought process. Not that Blumhouse can't do some films that are likable, but I don't love what they've done to the Halloween franchise, and and I don't want them to pick up the Friday the 13th franchise. I would love to have an A24 pick up the Friday the 13th franchise, but for like seeing your film and having the indie quality behind it, there's more meaning behind that, and it's heartfelt and people driven, and that's what I also loved about it.
I feel like there's more passion between, like, say, an indie filmmaker versus a big time studio, kind of like college football versus professional football. In college football, they're more passionate about it. They're not, obviously they want to get to that next level, but there's more heart in it, whereas you're a professional football player, you're just playing for all the money. Whereas it's like the Indian filmmaker, there's a lot of passion into it. They're putting their heart into it, and they want to get to that next level. And it shows. I'm happy that there's more popularity in the indie films than the studio films. That makes sense.
What was it like working with your fellow cast members? You answered that. Did you have a really good connection with everybody? And the director Chris Nash. I mean, what was your relationships like with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great team to work with, from the cast to the crew, everybody there. It was a small, pretty tight knit group. I don't think there was probably any more than like 15 people on set on the biggest day, which would have been like the biggest practical effects days, or like the biggest day where we had like the cable doing the overhead shot. Those were probably our biggest days. I'm saying 15 people. Maybe there was more, but it seemed about that much. And yeah, so everyone got really tight. Everyone was there to do the best possible thing that we could do. We're in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere for a lot of the shoot. So it was just, we hang out. There's no internet. There's no, you just kind of hang out and chat, because there's not much to do in the meantime while the sets are being shot up or set up, and effects are being, set up and all that stuff. So yeah, everyone was really cool. And then going to festivals and different events that we've gotten to go to too. It's just been a lot of fun, and hanging out with, whoever we get to meet up with at those things. It's a little reunion each time. So it's a lot of fun.
I'll say, how do you pronounce it? Sault Ste. Marie?
Sault Ste. Marie. I know it's like a French pronunciation, but
yeah. How was it working in those conditions? Because I remember seeing behind the scenes when the first came out, you guys were wearing, other than you, because you had your mask, but they had a lot of bug nets going on.
Yeah, it was. It depended on which shooting block we were in, because the earliest part of when we went there, it was fine. It was like just in spring, but the bugs were coming out, but they weren't biting yet. And then it was like literally one day that changed, and suddenly the mosquitoes and the black flies were just attacking everybody and swarming. So everyone was wearing netting and had spray on, and they like the crew had it the worst, because they had to be there the whole time and trying to do technical stuff. And then we, the cast in between, we could hop in a van or somewhere, any kind of shelter, go inside, because there would be clouds, like full on clouds. And to the point that like I was actually wearing a net underneath the Johnny mask in a couple scenes on the days that it was really bad, because they would still get in because there was beeswax on the mask to hold it a certain way. So like that attracted more of them.
Okay.
So there were days where I had blackout paint around my eyes, and then bug spray I'd spray on, and then wear the net, but they'd still find a way inside. And for some reason, they were attracted to the black paint, so they would go right for my eyes while I'd be in the middle of a walking scene. So I just shut my eyes and hope that I'm not going to trip over something, and they'd be literally festering at my eyes, and then you'd be sweating, and bug sweat and bug spray and all this shit would be going into your eyes. So there's a couple of days where I was literally, at the end of the day, like my eyes were just like closing up. But that was like the worst of that part of it. That lasted a few days here and there. Other than that, Sault Ste. Marie is beautiful.
Yeah.
There's mountains and waterfalls, and
that scene with, I think her name was Aurora, where the yoga girl, that was a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Like, how far away were you from civilization?
Most of the locations we drove to, they're in an area just outside of the Sioux called Goulet River. So it would be anywhere from like a 20-minute drive to maybe I think like the ranger station, and then anywhere from like 30 minutes to like 45 minutes to close to an hour to some of the other locations, which were like in the middle of nowhere, like up on a mountain or on the side of a Crown Lands forestry paths or something like that. We were all over the place picking up scenes and stuff, but some of them were extremely remote.
Okay. So let's get into what I guess would be everything's been interesting so far, but we're going to talk about the kills and kind of dissect them a little bit. Dave has his favorite. I have my favorite, but the kills from start to finish were really good. And I had to say, like, as the film progressed, you can see Johnny getting more pissed off with each kill. I think especially when you get to the scene at the cabin, when you put the log on the horn and you're just like speed walking around, like what you're going to do. Like, so the first kill, I was paying attention, but I wasn't ready for it. And you just came with that, like the what was it, a hacksaw or
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
I guess it's a two-ended saw that you.
Yeah, and just and like the emotion and plot. Great opening kill for me was that, I guess all the guy wanted to do was have a smoke and have a good night, and you interrupted it.
Yeah, you kind of feel sorry for him, eh? Because no, everyone's giving him a hard time, and then
Yeah, and if you think about it, Dave, the character of Aaron, who was the first victim, in a way, he was like Paul. He had everyone by the campfire telling the tale of Johnny, and
yeah,
I knew, like, when she was taking like the group photo, I'm like, down the line they're going to say, looking at the film and say, oh, there was someone in the woods. Like I knew that was going to happen eventually.
yeah. Johnny's watching.
The only time I saw I call that a half cap. A half cap. It was in Wrong Turn, and when the guy was in the tree with the axe, and you saw her body fall from the tree down, and her eyes were just like a good half cap. Yeah,
and then going into the next kill was when we get the two females across the lake, and Johnny goes and takes his time walking under the lake. How long? Like, so was there someone? Obviously, there was maybe someone under the water pulling the actress down. Was that you, or was it just another stuntman doing that?
I did that. We had that was probably one of the scariest things that I had to do for it. But it was all safe. And they made sure that I was feeling safe doing it. There was a lifeguard just off, but I was in full gear, and then I had a diver's belt on, so I was weighted.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went into the water, it kind of it cut down really quick, but so we couldn't do it. I had to like kind of pretend that I was going deeper before I got to that point, so it would look like a gradual. But then once I hit that point, you just hit the mud and you'd like slide down under the water, and the mask would always want to pop up. So the second I hit the water, I reached up and would hold on the mask, and I think we had to do it about, I don't know, about 5 times maybe. Okay. Because that was the thing. We just ironed out, the problems each time we went in. We're like, okay, let's try it this way this time. But the hardest part was just like, you didn't know when you were going to have to hold your breath, because you have to hold your breath for as long as possible once you're under, so the ripples would stop. But you would go under the water and the mask would slowly start filling up. And sometimes it would just go right up, and other times it would slowly go up under the water. So yeah, that was a fun day, but it was super hot out that day, so it was nice to actually get in the water.
So in this script, did it say how that character died, or is it just drowning?
It was pretty much as written, but they had gone about. Yeah, I think actually in the original script, Johnny reached up and hooked her. Like they were going to shoot it under the water. Actually, they were going to follow him under the water originally, and then he was going to hook her and pull her down. And they were going to actually show that, but then the more they thought about it, it didn't logistically work the same way, and it kind of they liked the idea of just letting you linger above and not seeing what was happening.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the opening scene of Jaws, Dave.
Yeah,
when the girl's out swimming and she gets brought down, and then she does come up and then gets brought down again. Now we're coming up to my favorite kill is with the yoga girl. I was in the theater. In the theater, I would say it was a smaller theater room. It was at an AMC. It sat, I think, like 100 people, but there was a good 70 people. And this was the soft opening on a Thursday night. And I think you heard me go, oh. I mean, my popcorn, and then like, just like the trauma in her fear was really good. And then like, she turns around and it's like, I either jump or I get killed, and it was funny how she was a yoga person and you kind of gave her your own horror yoga pose.
You mean the downward dog?
Yeah, the old pretzel twist.
That was just, I've never seen a kill just, I don't know, like just that forever sticks with me. I'm not a when there's horror movies that are over the top with gore, I call it gore porn, like Saw, Terrifier. I'll still watch them, but that's not my favorite. This kill was enough to make me just go, you just you got her, you hooked her, and you pulled her in, and How was that? Like, how many takes did it take for that?
That was, I mean, that was the one that when I read the script too, I'm like, I'm already on board. This is fun. This is great. And then when they got to that part in the script, I was like, wow, they actually pull this off the way that it's written, like step by step. And I think if anything, they added anything, but it was all there, like step by. I think the only thing they might have added was the neck pop and like little insert things,
Hmm.
but it was written just as is. And I that was the one scene that I was like, if they do this, this is going to be a thing. Like I didn't expect it was going to do what it did, but I was like, this people are going to appreciate this scene. And then yeah, it took about 3 or 4, maybe 5 days altogether. But we were, I think, shooting it on the cliffside about 3 or 4 days. But they were part days because we do the lead up, and then we wouldn't have enough light to finish, doing the full effect. And then within the schedule, we started shooting it one day, and I forget if the weather turned or the lighting, but we had to stop. We got up to a certain point, and then we had to come back in another shooting block about, I don't know, 3 4 months later, and finish the full extent of it, which was a lot of just not necessarily like multiple takes, but it was you do a take until you got that one little clip of like either pulling the chain through or the this action. But then I'd step out, the effects guys would step in, add everything, do all that, and then I'd step in. It was very much like a process, a very technical process, and it just takes time, but it was a lot of fun just sitting back and watching it too. Like, as such a fan of practical effects and makeup and everything, I was just like, all right, I really want to see how they're going to do this. And it, like, they full on just did. It was like step after step after step after step, a lot of work, a lot of time, and then the edit, and then they even did a couple little pickup scenes too, just to add in little, a little more flavor, like that neck bone pop and stuff. Like that.
Yeah, that was good. And then we talked about it briefly, but when you're at the cabin and you set up the trap, basically, it's setting off the car horn, and Johnny's just walking, like he knows what he's going to do. And when I watched it last night, I'm like looking for things that I didn't pick up when I saw it in the theater. And as he's walking by the window, I'm like, there's a guy like in the window. I'm like, is that a goof? And
I
then
didn't notice that either until like the third time I saw it. Actually,
yeah, and then I'm
yeah.
like, and then it made sense when the friend came out with the gun.
Yeah, that's Alex. Yeah.
Now when you got shot, how many takes did it take for that? Because Dave's been shot too, and he actually busted his butt doing it.
I had a squib, and I actually, because in my film, I take a bullet to the shoulder, and the timing was really, really hard because I controlled the squib in my hand.
Okay.
And when I did that, I waited to feel that pressure because I didn't want to fall back too soon. But when I went back and I was in a rocky terrain, I hit my coccyx, and I was like, oh my God.
Ouch.
But and they were still filming, and I yell out, "Did you get it?"
So
yeah, it can be. It doesn't take much to just do one wrong. Like if you spin the wrong way or you just don't go down the right way, it doesn't take much to like just hit something the wrong way. But I was lucky on that. That was we did a couple of takes. I think that was about it. But it was easy. And that, I don't even think that we used a squib for it. I think that was digital. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But it was just yeah, like a take and then and the fall down, because where I got shot, I think I could do like a side roll. So
Yeah.
fall down.
And when you got up, I like the fact that you just got up. It wasn't like a Michael Myers, let me just slowly raise type thing.
Yeah.
You got up, you grabbed the hatchet, and I mean, Johnny's got some skills, just throws it and gets the guy. And then,
Yeah.
And I didn't care. I didn't mind that the other guy got killed because he was a douche anyway. But just the whole taking the small, like, boulder or whatever you want to call it and just splat. Like,
Yeah,
great.
that was a fun scene to shoot too. That was fun to just watch that. It was like that was your basic body swap. The real
Yeah.
guy's there and I got a fake rock, and then we froze. I got a real rock and they put in the dummy, and then we had 2 takes on that. And the first one was still pretty good, but it just didn't like explode the way they wanted it. And then the second time it was like perfect.
Right.
Nice.
And then we get into, we'll lead up to Dave's favorite kill. Now, we've met the Ranger before, and I forgot to talk about your actual first kill was with the Trapper, I guess you can call him. And I like the fact that this is where we kind of get more of a backstory, which I think this is where maybe part 2 will lead to, because he had mentioned about confronting Johnny 10 years prior. So I'm thinking in my mind, I'm thinking this is where maybe part two will go. I would love to see like a prequel-esque type thing, you
Mm.
know, 10 years prior, and then maybe do some flashbacks of when Johnny um gets killed by the miners. But yeah, this is leading up to Dave's favorite kill, and I felt bad, really bad for the Ranger, you know, because you broke his back. He can't
Yeah.
do anything, but he can't even feel. I don't even think, you know. So, but yeah, Dave, did you want to go into this kill?
Yeah, no, we had briefly discussed it. It's definitely one of my favorites. Very methodical, and you could actually see Johnny enjoying it. I mean, it was the one kill where he thought about it and he took his time doing it. And I just, and I said this before to you, Brian. I said, if anything needs to be taken off from other films for the new genre, the new Friday the 13th franchise to come out whenever it does decide to get off the pot, you know, because God knows we don't know. They need to take notes from you and this film because I want thought out kills like this for our Jason, whoever it may be, whoever may take the role. But yeah, I just felt like that kill was, I mean, even after the film was over, I thought about it for days. And I when it came on Shudder, I watched it again. It'll always be my favorite from this film is the log splitter for sure.
Yeah, like
and
because I didn't know
Reese's.
what that machine was at first
Oh yeah.
until Johnny tested it out, and I'm like, oh, so I'm like, is he gonna like lay him on there and go like between the legs?
That's what I
But
thought.
It
I didn't
was
know that was
it was initially
a deli,
yeah.
like deli meats.
Initially they were gonna do that scene actually went on quite a bit longer. It was gonna be every limb. He was gonna go every limb
oh,
until he got to his head. But it was
oh,
we did the arm, and then there was so much blood, and it was already paced out, like it was going to be a longer scene already, so that like that would have gone on for like 15-20 minutes had that stayed in there. So it was just kind of one of those things that like in the moment watching it happen, everyone was like, this is already effective, this is enough. And Nash was like, yeah, we're gonna go to the head now, because it was just kind of one of those things. But it still works. I feel like if it would have been overkill if they just would have kept doing that and just kind of maybe lost the point of it. But
yeah,
the other thing,
yeah.
The
I was
blood.
just going to say, the other thing is that the log splitter actually was that doesn't exist. That was built. Chris Nash built that, pieced it together from different things, because it doesn't. There's log splitters, but they don't look like that. Like
Okay.
No, but the blood flow at the end after you severed his head, it was just so slow and so cool.
Well, even when he got his hand chopped off, it just started coming out.
yeah,
And I imagine to myself like Johnny just wants to play with him and kind of show him, look what I'm going to do to you, and let's just chop off your hand. So
that was another thing too. Is that the reset on that would have been too. There was so much blood that it was just like, this is already gruesome. And then Johnny's walking through the blood. It would have been a lot of work to reset that, and then to do all this other stuff. But then the other thing I like about that scene too is that so Reese Presley, he plays the Ranger. He's kind of built up to be this heroic figure. So it's like the whole, oh no, this is not going to be the way that you think. And then on top of that, it also creates this cool moment that, like, I don't think was thought of at the time. But if you were to go back and do a prequel or something before this and show what happened with his character, you can show him really do something to Johnny that pisses him off, and then this scene will even make even more sense, right?
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah. And
I
that's
don't know
why,
if that'll happen, but it's just like a cool idea to be like,
That
well,
is-
this guy did something. Yeah.
let Chris know, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's very effective.
I think he's already aware, but it's
Yeah, well, it's kind of like in Jason Goes to Hell, Creighton Duke and Jason had this backstory that we have no idea, and that kill probably would have made more sense, him breaking his back if we knew what that backstory was.
Mhm.
So, and then pretty much, we end up where we meet Lauren, and I told Lauren this. I said, during basically it was like almost like a 10-minute scene. I want to feel, I never timed it, but I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, is she a red herring? Is she going to get killed? Is she Johnny's sister that we don't know about? Like, that's what was going through my mind the whole time. And I was like, I want to see her live because she's, not the final girl. And then when she got out of the car, even the actress was like looking behind her as she's applying the first aid. I was for sure thought you were going to be behind Laura Marie and give
Mhm.
her maybe a kill and then end. But I like how they left it open ended.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a very divisive ending. Like some people love it, some people hate it. I love it because it's that ending and Lauren's performance, I think, fantastic. But the whole thing is an analogy for the whole movie. Like it just flips the script again. Everything that she's saying is an analogy, but then your expectations, like what you're just saying, everyone's expecting her to either become something evil or Johnny to pop up out of somewhere or, something like that. And it's all about diverting the expectations and then just leaving you hanging with, no, he's still out there and all these questions are still there. And that's what you're dealt with, or that's what you're dealing with after something great. Like that's the trauma that you'd be living with afterwards. So
Yeah. The smoke mask, was that an authentic piece or was that a recreation?
it's a recreation, but Nash actually made that and designed it, and he made a lot of tweaks to it, but it still is pretty close to what the original smoke jumpers mask would wear in the forest fighting. I don't know how they would wear that in forest fighting because you can't breathe well. It is hot as hell in there. You can't really see well, so but it is pretty close to what the like the actual historical
Oh,
ones.
okay. Yeah, because Dave even looked them up online and they go for a pretty penny on eBay. It's crazy how much people
Five
are,
ten.
yeah,
Five
how
ten.
much they're
Oh
asking
yeah,
for them. Yeah.
wow.
Now I've seen, as soon as the movie came out, I have a costume designer who's a sponsor, does all my costumes for me. And he reached out to me. He's like, "Yo, you want to do a in a violent nature costume?" Because I already have almost like how Johnny looks, like the flannels and everything. But he's like, I don't know if I could do the mask. And there is actually a company that makes the mask. It would have to be a lot of like reworking to do. So that's
Right.
something that I'm looking to do for next year.
Cool.
Because anytime I can get to a comfortable costume, that's a good day for me.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. I've seen one guy do one that was at a convention, and it was actually pretty. I was impressed. It was pretty good, and
Yeah.
he like handmade the mask and stuff too. And I
Oh,
was like, wow, he
nice.
actually like went out. Yeah, but
That's cool.
that's the one tough thing with doing the Johnny cosplay is that like you got to figure out the mask because it is a bit of a thing, right?
Right. Yeah. Now, did
Your
you
own
take
setup?
what's up, Dave?
Do you have your own setup at home that you
That's what I
use?
was going to ask. Yeah, like if you took
Yeah,
anything
or you have
home.
to
I
hand them?
don't yet. I'm gonna have to get my hands on one eventually, I think. But I don't have anything at the moment. There literally only is like there's a couple screen use masks. That's it. One recreation that we use for promotional stuff,
Mhm.
and then the other ones that have like the cutout face that I wore when I was doing the walking scenes and stuff. So there is only a couple of them at the moment, but I know they're gonna be making more.
Gotcha.
And I'm hoping, a year or two down the line, maybe NECA will get the license and we'll have a Johnny figure that I can proudly put up. How would
That's
that be for
pretty.
you as an actor to have your own figure?
Yeah,
That'd be
Yeah.
it's they did. Do you know the Readful things, guys? They do.
Yes.
They do like the little.
Hmm.
They did a
Hmm.
little Johnny, like a little,
Oh, nice.
and
Okay.
that was pretty awesome just to see that right off the bat. And then there's another blockheads. I don't know if you've seen those at all, but those are
No.
they're like they're kind of like the Funko Pop
Oh,
things,
yes. I know what you're
except they're
talking
like little
about. Yeah.
cardboard, and they like
Yep.
yeah, they're really cool. He did a Johnny one, and the mask actually comes off, and his face is
Oh,
underneath.
yeah,
So
I know that guy. He did one of me for his name was Jason.
Oh, really?
oh, did it? Nice.
Yeah, do you remember that, Brian? It was on the fan page. Yeah, he
Oh,
did
yes. 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 Yes.
one of
Okay.
he did
Yeah,
one
they
of
do some really
Strange.
cool ones. There's
Yeah,
some
yeah,
they
yeah.
got some good ones.
Now, I know you can't really tell us too much about the sequel, but will it still be like from Johnny's point of view, or are we kind of going in a little bit different direction?
I think I think definitely to a degree it's going to be. I honestly don't know, and I've talked to Nash, a couple times just when we've run into each other and stuff. But I also don't want to bug him because I know there's a lot of pressure there, and I
Hmm.
just kind of want to let him do his thing. And they definitely Johnny is definitely back for it. Just don't know exactly what because it is open. This film could be flipped in another way, and they could do a prequel. They could do something after. They could do it from different perspectives. So I don't know exactly what that hook is going to be for this one. But it's definitely going to like stay in the vein but try to do something new at the same time.
Well, I guess it's safe to say because it wasn't listed what the budget was to make this film. We were very curious, and we've looked very hard to see how much it may have cost, but he hasn't revealed. But it's safe to say now, with the new one coming out, you're going to have quite a larger budget to work with. But with that also being said, I hope we don't lose that feeling of an independent film still, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's something specifically that both Shudder and IFC, they've been great through this whole thing because they actually did they loved the idea and they trusted the people and they let, you know, it be what it was. And they want the same kind of thing. And I know that Nash and Peter and Shannon, and they all want the same kind of thing too. It will obviously have more money behind it for the just in case kind of things that happen. Whereas with the first one, I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard the story that it was basically 70% shot. A bunch of terrible things happened, and we had to reach the whole. I wasn't a part of that part. I got brought onto the second shoot, and I'm not saying that I wasn't like some savior or something like that. It was they had so many issues like nature. They had torrential downpours. They had crew like one of their DP like fell off a cliff. There was like all these crazy things that happened that, you know, so they lost a lot of the budget on that first initial shoot, and it just didn't visually, it wasn't what Nash wanted to. So they got to come back and use all of that and be like, all right, what do we want to fix? What do we want to change here? And then that's when I got brought on board too. And then
so you weren't the original Johnny then? I
wasn't the original Johnny.
Oh,
no.
So
there was another Johnny who literally got acquired a massive like silicone allergy and couldn't be in the suit.
Wow.
So like things from like crazy stuff like that, and then they tried to recast on the spot, and it wasn't being consistent, and all these different things kind of happened. But this time, so the second time around, there was way less money, but everything was kind of like already established ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So they used what they could, and it was kind of it made it, I think, what it was too. So I think they want to try to, you know, keep that spirit for the second one and not rely on the money, make sure all the money goes on screen. And then if there's an emergency, if they need that, they got the backup. So,
yeah, I mean, at least the extra will get you better hotel rooms, better meals.
yeah.
You know,
better bug repellent. Yeah.
yeah. More bug repellent, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess it's safe to say that, like you said, you're a horror fan. It's pretty much your genre. Do you have a specific horror slasher iconic person that you like a Jason or a Michael? I mean, is there one that you can say is your top favorite that you enjoy watching the most of?
I mean, I did growing up. Me and my brother used to we rented all the Fridays, and we loved Kane Hodder. We loved what he did. Just it was kind of like, and loved seeing him, you know, show up on Arsenio Hall, and you know, just how Jason kind of was a star at that point, right? Mm-hmm. in of himself, and that Hodder kind of brought this thing to it. And but I've loved creatures going back to like the Universal monsters and all the stuff, you know, in between there. But I've always slashers like the original Michael Myers, Nick Castle, and in the original The Miner and My Bloody Valentine, Cropsy, all the ones that I kind of mentioned before, and obviously Leatherface. But I mean, I even go into areas where like Tony Todd as Candyman is phenomenal too. Like there's just Doug Bradley. Like there's so many of them that I'm such a fan that I find it hard to choose one favorite.
Now
Robert Englund.
Yeah.
Like I actually just watched I just went to the theater last night and caught the original Nightmare on at the theater for like 40th anniversary screening. It's just fun seeing that on the big screen for the first time. So
yeah. Now, have you like attended horror conventions as just like going to meet an actor? Like who would you fangirl over to meet one of your icons?
I remember Sigourney Weaver was at Fan Expo, and I didn't get to go see her or meet her, but that was the one I would have fanboyed like a little girl.
Yeah.
I met her because I'm just a huge Aliens fan and just fan of her work in general all the way through. But other than that, yeah, I got to meet I met Kane at a convention actually on Friday the 13th, and that was the first time I met him. That's going back, I think it was actually in 2013. So that was a cool moment. I met him again after that too. But yeah, I don't know. I there's certain people that I bump into. I'm just like, whoa, I'm a huge fan, and it's like I don't expect it. I'll meet other people who are like who've done big things, and I respect them, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But then sometimes you don't expect who. Like I would geek out if I met John Carpenter or
Oh yeah,
E.B. King. Like those two would I wouldn't know what to say, kind of thing.
yeah. Now it's kind of cool that you've kind of come full circle. You've attended horror conventions as a fan, and now you are doing the horror conventions where fans are meeting you now. So that's a nice little full circle there.
It's weird. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, definitely. But you worked hard for it, and
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Congratulations.
No, thanks. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you for making it because, like I said, it's probably the one film this summer that I've enjoyed the most when it came to horror because there's been quite a bit this year. And I did love Long Legs. I did enjoy that quite a bit. That was unexpected. I thought that was phenomenal.
I enjoyed it too. We've had a great year. Like I just watched Strange Darling and what was the other? I just watched Speak No Evil and
that was good.
I was surprised because I love the original. The original is a true horror movie, and it's something you walk away with and you don't want to watch again right away because it just gets you.
Okay.
But the way that they flipped the script on the remake, it's like a B-side version, like an alt version of the other one, and they both work, and that was cool.
Yeah, I have yet to see the Dutch version. Now after seeing the American version, I want to see the Dutch version to compare. I hear it's good and
it is. It's
different.
Whereas I don't know, spoilerish. Whereas this one, the Americanized version, kind of goes into like Straw Dogs territory.
Okay.
The other one goes a different area, and it's fucking dark, and it's like it'll stick with you.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Dave, do you have any final questions?
No, I think we did well. We branched off and covered all grounds. I just really I ordered my Blu-ray. I think it's being released in another week or two, right?
The 22nd. Yeah, the 22nd. See, I'm bougie. I was hoping for a 4K release, but I got to do with a Blu-ray.
For now, right? I'm sure. Hopefully, in another little bit of time, there'll probably be another one. But
yeah, for sure. Before we say goodbye, where can our listeners and watchers find you on social media to keep up with what you're doing?
Just mostly probably Instagram. It's just at the Ry Barrett, and then I'm on Facebook too. I'm on TikTok, but I just put a bunch of weird kind of geeky stuff up on there. So, and then I'll share trailers too, but I don't have a lot of traction on there, probably because I'm too old for it. But mostly Instagram, Facebook.
Right, we should get him. Try to get him come up to Blairstown. You see the OG town. You would probably.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. For sure.
The next Friday the 13th celebration is in June. Obviously, we got one in December, but we don't really do anything in the off season. But the offer's out there if you want to come down in June.
That'd be cool, man. Lauren was talking about that too, and that's funny too because I was actually nervous when I met Lauren the first time too, and it was on set the day that she was doing her scene. We just had a lunch break, and I came in. And I was like, oh, I'm like that's Lauren because I've seen the movie. Obviously, I've seen it countless times and all of them. So I'm like, I grew up with Lauren being, this character too. So it was cool meeting her. And then now I run into her and we're like buddies. So
and she makes it feel that way. She is just so darn friendly. She makes you you feel like you've known her forever. So
we were at that con together and we just hung out. And
she said she had a great time with you. Yeah.
Bill Randolph and Ron Milkey are the same way too. I mean, those guys. Ron was the cop in the original Friday the 13th on the motorcycle, and I mean, they're just genuine human beings. And when you talk to them, other than just about Friday the 13th, which I'm sure they get sick of hearing and talking about. But like their lives are just so that much more interesting about, everything they've done in acting. Yeah. And I love hearing those stories and pulling that inspiration as a filmmaker and a story writer. It's like,
absolutely,
their techniques and, method acting and all these things. And man, and me and Bill, Bill Randolph, we're both bourbon guys and we sit back and we kill a couple bourbons together and we talk about film and stuff like that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time, man. That's
I was
that was the other thing too. Like I totally agree because I was asking Lauren about Neighbors because I'm a fan of that movie going way back too, and I forgot like for there was a little while I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like she's in Neighbors too. So like I was talking to her about that, and that's the thing. Sometimes you forget the other things that people have done, and then all of a sudden she was telling me this crazy story of a day on set, and I was like, oh yeah, John Avildsen directed that too. Like he just won an Oscar for Rocky right before they shot that, so it's cool hearing that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, she was one of my very first celebrity interviews, and she shared a story how Dad, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd took her shopping in the Village for her clothing in the movie, and it was Dan Aykroyd who picked out the edible underwear, the strawberry flavored edible. And she's got that stigma because she actually made this before Friday the 13th, but Friday the 13th was released first.
Right.
She went from brown panties to edible panties.
That's funny.
All right. Yeah, it was a pleasure talking with you. And dissecting it was really cool to dissect the movie with you. And as you know, Dave and I are looking forward to your work, either in the Violent Nature 2 or whatever you do. I'm going to, be on the lookout for another film. That you have any other films in the work right now?
Thanks, guys. Yeah. I have another one just came out. It's streaming now. It's called Cheat. It's sort of a throwback to like Brian De Palma, body double meets stuff that Adrian Lynn kind of did, Fatal Attraction, sort of in that area. Obviously not on that budget level, but in that area. And then another film launches on the 11th on Tubi, actually, called Beyond the Chamber of Terror, which is if you're a fan of Giallo and if you're a fan of the Evil Dead series and an extreme horror comedy, tons of gore, over the top, crazy characters. That one's a lot of fun. And we have another one called The Hyperborean that just came out. That's another horror comedy from the same team that we did a movie called Cult Hero just a year or so ago. And it's a lot of quirky fun. It's about a whiskey baron family that is very dysfunctional, and they open up, or they do a whiskey tasting for this barrel that they found in the ice, and they find out that it's contaminated with a body inside of it. And then there's more. There's a lot more.
I love that concept.
Yeah.
And I like how Tubi is, they've been around for a while, and now they're putting out their own stuff, and it's some hidden gems in there. So I'm gonna.
Huge advocate.
Follow these, just follow them. Someone take a look at them over the next month or so. Dave, do you want to take us home?
No, we just really appreciate you coming on, taking the time on this Sunday afternoon and joining two old geeks that love horror and spending time with the Third Channel. And we'll definitely keep an eye out. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and having you signing my Blu-ray. And hopefully we can do this again with the new film that comes out. Did they give an idea of when this might come? A year or two, or 2 years?
Yeah, probably a year or two. I mean, it depends on the demand, I guess, for when they want the launch and stuff. But I'm assuming it'll be going to camera in spring or early summer next year. I think. I don't know details 100% yet, so it's kind of all down to the script and the prep and all that.
I follow you, I follow Lauren, I follow Chris, and I'll keep an eye out. And we're just really excited to have you on, and we appreciate it. And we'll get this up in a day or two, and we'll share it with you as well.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me. I'll definitely share.
All right, Dave. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.